person. He could be a cool jazz cat like the piece we just heard. He could be a sophisticated, erudite person like his music of Age of Innocence. He could be a rough and tumble street guy like Animal House. He actually did ride horses, so he was Magnificent Seven. He basically was all the music you've heard is the man. The first music I heard of his was Ten Commandments. I was a kid, and to me, Elmer Bernstein was God and Moses rolled into one. And not just because of his music, but he actually started the first film music label dedicated to the preservation of film music. He wrote articles about it, and everything he said was sort of the word of God. So I wanted to meet God. And there was no burning bush, but there was directory information. And at that time, everyone was listed. So I'm 11 years old, and I knew he lived in Calabasas because that was the mailing address of his records. Called directory information, asked for Elmer Bernstein, got his phone number, said, "Can I meet you?" And he goes, "Come on over." So my parents drove my brother and me from Bakersfield to Calabasas and dropped us off at the house of Elmer Bernstein. And so in 6th grade, the door opens. I have no idea what God's going to be like, but it turns out God is a weird cross-pollination of a Jewish Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. Things that normally do not meet, and a big dash of Willy Wonka. Because the guy could manifest dreams like nobody else. So I spent a long afternoon asking him every nerdy question about what it was like to work with Frank Sinatra and Cecil B. DeMille and be blacklisted. And really, tell me about writing the music for Kraft, Women of the Moon. And he told great stories, but what was even more interesting, he asked me more questions than I asked about him. He was the most curious man I ever met. And I left that day at 11 years old, and my life changed. I, up to that point, assumed people in Hollywood and rich people and famous people must be jerks, because that's what I've always heard. They're evil, they're bad, they're self-centered. But Elmer had this wonderful family at the house, and he was so kind to me. And as I was driving back to Bakersfield, I knew my life was never going to be the same. I wanted to grow up and be Elmer Bernstein. Now, unfortunately, I cannot write music. So instead, I got a job a few years later working at Hickory Farms, giving away free samples of beef steak. Not quite the same, but I persevered and finally saved up enough money to move to LA and work for a lousy, low-budget film company where I got to hire Elmer Bernstein and Peter Bernstein to work on a really bad Bo Derek movie, as opposed to all the really good Bo Derek movies. But it was a wonderful experience. I found myself fired shortly thereafter. And what do you do when you're down? I have no money, no future, no career. You call God. So I called Elmer, and he said, "Well, you know, Richard," because he had this weird pseudo-British accent that he was from New York. He goes, "You know, Richard, you know more about film music than my agent. You should go work for him. You should be an agent." And he didn't just suggest it, he called his agent and said, "I think you should hire Richard." And in that one moment, everything in the course of my life changed. And Elmer and I had many adventures over the years, and I enjoyed going to his scoring sessions, but more than anything, I enjoyed watching how he lived life. Even in his 80s, I'd say, "Hey, can we get together on Wednesday?" He goes, "Oh, Wednesday I'm flying to London to have dinner with Don Black, but I'll be back Thursday. You want to get together?" Who does that? Elmer Bernstein is so full of life. And even though the music we've heard tonight was written, some of it 5 decades ago, some of it 20 years ago, those notes he put on paper have come back to life because all these musicians are looking at those notes and breathing them back. And tonight we got to experience Elmer Bernstein's soul coming to life, and this magician with a wand makes it all come together. And I know Elmer would get such a kick out of this, because this was the kind of celebration he loved. He loved fun and joy and making music, and that's what tonight is. And thank you so much for letting me be a little part of it.